Hi everyone, my name is Nadia Shabazz, and today I'm going to be presenting my final project. So thank you to whoever's listening or watching or grading this. I'm going to start off with the original question for our initial proposal was and why I changed it and what I ended up going with instead. So my initial question was, how do Saudi Arabia's nationalization policies, such as Saudization requirement, affect productivity and efficiency in different economic sectors? I went with this because I landed an internship this past summer and saw a lot of the Saudization, and it was a big topic in the university that I was actually working at. So in Saudi, you have to have a certain number of Saudi citizens working at whatever corporation it may be. So I was wondering what impacts this had and, you know, if it's making their economy thrive, if it's hurting them. Um, but it ended up being hard to get data for that and it was a little too niche. Eventually, though, I think if I had more time and could really dig for some good data sets and do a bit more research, it would be a fun thing to look at. What I ended up going up with was a lot more broad. Um, so let's get into it. I'm going to share my screen now. All right, so today we're going to analyze the impact of high demand majors on GPA outcomes. Okay, my question was, does majoring in high demand programs at UC Berkeley affect GPA outcomes? So this presentation is not just about the results, but kind of the journey on how I approached the problem, the methods I used, and what the findings meant, at least to me, and I hope I got them right. So here you'll see a few of the sources I used. My key variables were average GPA, which is the main outcome we're trying to understand, grading variability, measured as the standard deviation of GPAs in a major. This tells us how consistent grades are. Higher variability might mean less predictable grading. I also decided to include, yes, a binary variable where one represents a competitive in-demand major and zero is all other majors. And as I was going through this process, I was thinking of things to control for or what to really include. And from the data that was available, I decided to go with demographics, um, like the percentage of Asian, white, and Hispanic students to see if they had any additional explanatory power. So, one of the first steps was preparing the data, and this definitely took a while, and it was a lot of trial and error with coding in R in this specific step. But it really did help me move forward and help me trust my results at the end. Um, so here's what I did. I filtered for letters and science majors because this narrowed the data set to a consistent group of programs, kind of reducing the noise from unrelated majors. I created a high demand indicator. I flagged majors like computer science, data science. Previously, it was economics. And also, I would like to mention this data is all before 2023 because a lot of the high demand majors kind of changed recently. Um, and yeah, and I verified that my variables like GPA and grading variability were all coded correctly. So then I got to move on, and here is what I initially saw. High demand majors with a mean GPA of 3.45 and low demand majors mean GPA of 3.43. So my initial hypothesis was that the high demand majors would have a lower GPA. Um, but I guess when really thinking about it, high demand majors will often attract high achieving students, possibly, who might be better prepared academically, and this could be a reason for that. Maybe departments are curving grades up more generously to retain, um, you know, certain standards. So those could just be a few factors as to why we're seeing this, but there could definitely be many more. Um, Now we have our regression analysis. So here I have my regression equation. Um, and let's take a look at what we're seeing here. So we're accounting for the impact of being in a high demand major on GPA. We're capturing the effect of grading variability, and we're accounting for how the size of the major might influence grading. That's the last one you see there, head count. And population standard deviation GPA is the grading variability. And what did we find? We found that high demand status lowers GPA by 0.06 points. Very small, but still significant. Um, Grading variability, though, had the strongest effect. So that was interesting to see. I guess it tells us that major demand, yes, very slightly, it matters, but the grading structure within the major is kind of the bigger role. And then here we have this distribution of randomized coefficients, kind of clustering around, guess, let's see, zero. I guess this would confirm that our original relationship isn't random. Another table, you can see what I called for at the top. And yeah, let's move forward. So, to kind of check all of this, I had two methods, a randomization test, and then used instrumental variables. But for the randomization test, I assigned the high demand label to random majors. If my findings were due to chance, then this test would show similar results, but it didn't, which is good. And instrumental variables, I used head count as our instrument to control for some potential bias, and the results were consistent. So high demand very slightly does impact the GPA. But my limitations, I guess, I would say are the omitted variables like factors like student motivation or their prior academic preparation could definitely influence these results. But unfortunately, I didn't have data to really see that. Grading variability might act as a bad control, um, meaning it could introduce some bias instead of explaining the variability. Um, So yeah, and then the data set, I guess I would say is cross-sectional. So we can't really observe um how trends evolve over time. And one of the things I tried to do was I thought maybe during COVID it got a little easier because things were online. But I did have trouble uh getting that all into place, so I didn't include that. And my conclusion to wrap it up, high demand majors have a small but measurable impact on GPA. Grading practices are the biggest factor. So ultimately, I used everything thanks to the GSIs and the professor, my professor that um, I learned all these metric tools to kind of understand what was going on here. Yeah, so I hope you enjoyed, and my biggest takeaway would be that the results highlight the need for maybe some support systems in our high demand majors, but this definitely surprised me, and it wasn't what I was expecting. And it took controlling for some things here and there to kind of see the result I was looking for, although it wasn't as big of a result that I was expecting. So thank you for listening. Let me stop sharing. Sorry if that took too long, and thank you for a great semester. I really learned a lot, I hope.